Hey everybody, it's Mr. Pulgarin, and I want to welcome you to this Fiveable stream on slavery and its impact. I want to welcome all of you guys on here on the stream. This is the biggest audience I've had so far streaming, so awesome. Thank you guys. Real quick, if you can hear me, can you guys give me a thumbs up in the chat? All right, Peyton, Crystal, Brian, Chuck, Anushka, Janet, Hannah, thank you guys. All right, guys, well, I want to welcome you. Daniela Estrada, welcome back. Jackie, welcome back. So great to have you guys on here. Now, I've a few things. I've put a link on here. Let me make sure I share it again. This is a handout that we are going to use during this presentation. And it's important that you have it at least on your desktop because this is a DBQ we're going to go through. And I'll talk a little bit. Frank, welcome to the live stream. Well, we have an exciting stream plan for you guys today. Last week we had an amazing session. I just want to thank all you guys, and especially if you came back, that's a huge compliment. So I thank you guys. And before we start, let's jump in there. I know today's, let's start with the basics here. Think Fiveable. This stream is brought to you free by Think Fiveable. Think Fiveable streams on 19 AP subjects for free. Students can access this for free. You can follow them on Twitter. I follow them on Twitter. They post a lot of great articles and things like that. You can follow them on Instagram, and you can follow them on YouTube. Although I don't follow them on YouTube, I haven't been able to find many videos on YouTube, but maybe that's just me, but maybe you have better luck. Well, let's start off real quick. I know today is Tuesday, just the beginning of the week, but let's put an emoji of how your day was today. So how did your day go? All right, Ariana, thumbs up. Maybe that thumbs up's for the volume, I'm not sure, but Ariana, how did your, all right, Peyton, Crystal, all right, Brian, thumbs up. Mars, giving praise. All right. Chuck, thumbs up. Hannah, all right. Peace and love. I like that. All right. Anushka, not sure what that one is. A rainbow. Okay, it's a rainbow, so sunny day. Joe, thumbs. Gina, all right. You having a good time there? So just want to, you're tired there. Musarat and Huda and Gina there and Joe. Well, guys, welcome to the chat. I hope you're not sleepy on here. And if I mispronounce your name, I'm so sorry, guys. If you put the phonetic spelling, then I'll do my best because I really want to interact with you and call you guys by the proper name here. I had a good day today. It was a long day, but I really get excited when I get to stream on Fiveable, and especially when I have my biggest audience yet. So I want to thank you there. I want to thank Miss Kim's class out in Bright Star Secondary Charter Academy. I want to thank Mr. Patty's class over there in Texas. And real quick, where's everybody from? Put the state that you're from right now. Where are you logging in from? California, Karen, Chuck, California, Crystal, Texas, Ohio, New York, Ida, thank you. Florida, awesome. South Carolina. All right, we have a nice diverse crowd here. Awesome, Joshua. Thank you guys so much for joining. And really quick, can you just put the name of your teacher there so I can give your teacher a shout out? Because I know that if I had students and they were logging in on their free time on a Fiveable stream, I would be extremely proud. So I want to make sure I give your teacher a shout out. Mr. or Mrs. Oliveros? Mr. White. Oliveros, all right. Got to thank Mr. Oliveros for having many students log into here. Miss Kim, Bors, give a shout out to Miss Kim over there in Bright Star Secondary Charter Academy. Mr. Patty, all right, I know Mr. Patty, he's the guy with the mnemonic devices. Miss Marino, Miss Fiore, Gina, so awesome. All right, guys, I want to thank Mr. Oliveros. If you guys get a chance, I want to thank him for having you guys tune in here. And Mr. Lagerway, I think that's how you pronounce it. I'd probably just call him Mr. L. All right. So today we want to start off. Our AP US History stream today is on period 2. I'll talk a little bit about that, but today's key concept is like key concept 2.2. Like other European empires in the Americas that participated in the Atlantic slave trade, the English colonies developed a system of slavery that reflected the specific economic, demographic, and geographic characteristics of those colonies. If this sounds a little bit convoluted, we're going to break it down today. And at the end of this, you guys are going to go through what could be your first document-based question in AP US History. How many of you guys have already done a document-based question in AP US History? Thumbs up if you have, thumbs down if you haven't. Hannah, all right. Wow, all right. Well, you've been in school for like 4 weeks, Hannah. So Chuck, all right. Crystal, excellent, guys. So this is going to be a wonderful opportunity. Karen, Anushka, all right, guys. So this is going to be a wonderful opportunity to learn about the document-based question. Now, today's agenda is we're going to talk about the issue of reparations, and I'm going to bring a student on here on the stream, and she's going to share her opinion. So Hannah, I'll be bringing you in pretty soon. We're going to have a document-based question. We're just going to practice. This is a simpler one that is going to appear on the AP exam, but nevertheless, this is the first attempt, right? And then we're going to have some question and answer. All right, awesome. Peyton, awesome. Great. So period 2 covers 1607 to 1754. Now, 1607 is the settlement at Jamestown, but does anybody know why this ends in 1754? What happens? What's significant about this date? All right, Hannah, exactly. Zara, you're close. You're off by a little bit. You're close, but good try. That's a good try. All right. It's actually the French and Indian War. It's the start of the French and Indian War, which is going to shape North America for the years after that. So 1607 is the start of the first settlement in Jamestown, and 1754 is the start of the French and Indian War. And so these are the dates and why they seem so random, but they make sense in AP US History. Nicole Rivera, don't worry about it. That's awesome. I'm glad you're in the stream, and I'm happy you're here. Now, period 2. Last week we talked a little bit about period 1. It's 5% of the grade. Period 2 is 10% of the grade. So it's a significant portion. The next 3 periods that you guys are going to be covering, if you think about it, if you really put some time into it, you're going to have 25% of the content in AP US History. So last week we covered 5%, things that are 5%, this week 10%. Now today we are going to practice a DBQ, a document-based question. In the AP exam, you always have one question, you have 60 minutes, and it's 25% of the exam. So this is going to be your first little taste. It is a lot of information. It's one question, 60 minutes, and it's 25% of the exam. Today we're going to go slower though, and so hopefully it's going to be more manageable. Now, I attached the handout here, and I'll do it again one last time just in case you haven't. Oh, it said I already sent that message, so let me add an emoji here. Oh, sorry guys. All right, and okay, I'm going to post the link again. All right, there's the link. Oh, Peyton, thank you so much, Peyton. I appreciate you. So here's the link for the Fiveable stream. All right, 37 viewers. Wow, that's it. I hit the peak already. This is amazing. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. So if you get this handout, please just open it up because we're going to go through it. Now, this document-based question, I'm going to talk a little bit about it. This is not an AP US History document-based question. It is a US History one, but it's a good first attempt to get your feet wet. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But before we jump in, I want to talk about this question because today we're going to talk about slavery and its impact. And just recently, like 2 months ago, Congress was holding hearings on whether or not African Americans should receive reparations. And now reparations is the idea that African Americans should receive money because of the depravity of slavery, that they suffered under slavery, and that therefore they should receive money, the descendants of African slaves, because here's this injustice that was done to you, and here's the money that you deserve. Like, for example, if my wife, well, this is, I don't know if she's going to like this example, but let's say my wife gets hit by a drunk driver, that drunk driver's insurance would have to pay me some money. Obviously, I want my wife alive, but the idea is that they wronged me, they did something wrong to me, and that there's a way for me to claim justice, and sometimes justice is economic justice. So today we're going to talk about that question, and the question here is, should the descendants of African American slaves be paid reparations by the United States government? So the question is, should you and I and other people, other taxpayers, acknowledge that this was a sin, something wrong done by the United States, and that we should pay reparations? So I'm going to bring in Hannah. Hannah, are you ready? Thumbs up. I'm going to bring in Hannah onto the screen. And I asked Hannah yesterday if she could just share her opinion, because this is a controversial issue. And it's interesting to hear other opinions, and then we're going to talk a little bit about it. Now, first of all, in the chat, if you think African Americans should be paid reparations, while we're getting Hannah up here, give a thumbs up. If you think they shouldn't, give a thumbs down. Should African Americans, the descendants, the living descendants, be paid reparations? Peyton, all right. Hi, Hannah. I can hear you a little bit. Kevin, Michael, Hannah, all right. Chuck, Nicole. Okay, Karen. And if we check out our poll, I put a poll there. We have 9 no's, 2 yeses, and 4 maybes. So it's a very controversial idea. And some people say, yes, absolutely, they should be paid. They suffered greatly under slavery, and my ancestors deserve something for that wrong. Alexandra, no. Brian, yes. Joshua, all right. Hannah, can you? I can't see your camera. Do you have your camera on?
What do I do? I don't know how to do this.
Do you want me to try to get you back on, or?
Yes.
Okay, I'll call you back on in a sec. All right, Hannah?
Okay.
Okay. Let me close the video. And then maybe if somebody else wants to go in the chat, so we have a few yeses, depending on what position Hannah takes, I would like to hear maybe from another person that would want to volunteer and come on the screen and give their opinion on this. Should African Americans be paid reparations by the United States government?
Okay. Can't see me still. What do I do?
It's okay, Hannah. Maybe you can just talk. Can everybody hear Hannah? Can you give her a thumbs up if you can hear her? Montserrat?
Hi. Oh, okay.
Okay, they can hear you, Hannah. So Hannah, tell me a little bit about it. Should African Americans be paid reparations?
This is my opinion. I think that for the most part, I do not agree that African Americans should be paid reparations. When you look at it from a moral standpoint, I do agree, because they have been wronged, and what has been wronged should be corrected. But if you take a logical and a practical approach, I would disagree, because when they were slaves a long time ago, we are talking about this when this started in 1619. This is when slavery was introduced, and slavery ended way before the 21st century. And looking at today's factors and today's situations, I don't agree. The economy that we have right now in America is a capitalistic economy, and by saying that we are letting African Americans get paid kind of contradicts our economy, because now it's not really capitalistic. It's leaning more towards like a socialist or a communist kind
Yeah.
of economy, because now we're saying that we should I don't know how to explain this that well, but
Yeah, no, you're saying basically like instead of letting people pull themselves up by their bootstraps, we're giving them essentially money, which is
right.
completely anti-capitalistic.
Exactly. And some people would argue that African Americans they've been captured and taken away, but you have to understand that when the Portuguese first came to South Africa, many of the African leaders agreed to give it away because they were getting money or they were getting goods. And so many of them actually allowed them to be taken away as well. And if we're talking about racism, which has been a very profound effect in our society, and which I do agree with is an unfortunate and inevitable thing that has been going on, you have to
Yeah.
understand that if we're just talking about African Americans, if they're just being the ones who are going through all these racial problems, what about the other people? What about the Jews? What about um um Middle Easterners? What about Asians? What about the things that they are going through? You know?
Okay, cool. So you make some really interesting arguments. One is that this was a long time ago, and that the current we're so far removed from it that it's not anything to do with us. Two, that basically it goes against our economic system to give out this handout in terms of paying reparations. Is basically giving money in a capitalist society is not a great idea. Then you argue, what about other groups, and where does this stop, right? You have the Japanese that were in internment camps in World War II. You have the Jews. You have other groups that were persecuted. So when do those groups also deserve money? Native Americans, Tamara brought up Native Americans. But if you know the Native Americans, they are giving some sort of compensation. They're given certain land that they can build on. Yes, many of them build casinos on it, but they are giving that. So Tamara, that was a great point. Now, I want to ask you, sorry, before I call you real quick, does anybody want to come on and give the other perspective? Maybe you're for reparations. So give me a thumbs up if anybody's brave enough to come on here. Give me a thumbs up. Go ahead, Hannah.
Oh, also, Mr. Will, I wanted to also point out that we were also given a laissez-faire economy, and that also is kind of being contradicted as well. Not only are we now a capitalistic economy, but we also have a laissez-faire economy, and that also kind of gets contradicted with all that. That's what I wanted to say.
All right, Hannah, thank you so much. I want to see if Daniela Estrada wants to come on here. Hannah, you have some people that are ready to vote for you for president. Wow. It only took 5 minutes of talking and you got their vote. But that's a very interesting perspective, well argued. And Hannah, thank you so much. I want to see if somebody else wants to come on the stream. Thank you, Hannah.
No problem.
Okay, so Daniela, you agree with that. Who doesn't agree with that? Who thinks that we should pay reparations and would like to come on here? Come on, we got a brave person in there. Daniela Estrada. Hannah changed your mind. Hannah, not only are you getting people to run for president, but you're changing minds. Look at that. All right. Well, nobody wants to. All right. Hannah, you made some great points. Well, let's look at this then. In the United States, I was looking at the survey put out by Harvard. It is a little old, but Blacks think, should the government apologize for the internment of Japanese Americans? Blacks believe yes. Whites believe, 43% believe no. Should they pay compensation to those put in internment camps? Blacks believe 59% yes, and 26% of whites believe no. Should the United States government apologize for slavery? 79% of blacks believe yes, 30% of whites say no. And should they pay compensation for slavery? 67% say yes, and 4% of whites say yes. So this is really, really a controversial issue because basically, depending on your racial makeup, it gives you an idea of how you see this issue. Now, I want to give you, I think Hannah, thank you. You made some great points, but I want to give you an example. Yes, we do live in a capitalistic society, like Hannah said, but imagine, has anybody here played Monopoly? Give a thumbs up if you played Monopoly. Well, we have 46 people in the chat. That's a new record for me. All right, Tamar, Nicole, played it but never finished. I know what you mean. Gabriel, all right. So imagine we're going to look at the issue of slavery through the game of Monopoly. So whites began playing essentially many years before African Americans were allowed to play. So imagine that two white people are playing Monopoly for 20 rounds. That means they went around for 20 times buying the property. They were buying, collecting money and all that. And on the 20th try, you have an African American that begins playing. Now, this is an interesting argument put forth by an economist, but the idea is, what do you think, how fair is it for that African American coming in, even in the 10th round, coming in to compete against people that have already been playing the game? I don't think that's going to be fair at all. Or the scientist argues this is not fair. Therefore, when the African American comes in the 10th round or the 20th round, they should get the same amount of money that the players got while they've been playing for the first 10 or 20 rounds. Now, I'm not saying this is right, but it's an interesting argument because you know that the game of, Tamara, it's definitely not fair. If people have been playing for 20 rounds and you come in on the 20th round, there's probably not going to be any property to buy, and everybody's going to have way more money. And so, just like Nicole said, the latecomers should probably be compensated because the game is not fair. So yes, we live in an capitalist society, but the capitalist society assumes that everybody started at the same time. And we know that people did not start at the same time. Up until the 1950s, African Americans were denied rent, to the ability to rent places. They were denied jobs. Women, African, not only by race, but women as well. And so the game has been rigged. And so the idea is, I don't know how I feel. Should people get more money? I don't know. It's a game. But we're playing in real life, and people have suffered the consequences of slavery. And imagine now, if I play, the last thing is, I'm playing for 20 rounds, and then I give my family, my son or my daughter, my money, and then he or she builds more money, and then passes that down. We start accumulating wealth. Well, what if you just started in the 20th round? What are you going to pass on to your next ancestor? So it's an interesting concept. Let's see what you guys are saying. Exactly, Tamar. There's the disparities that stem from slavery, and that's a big issue because people became wealthy off slavery. That was not wealth that they were collecting. Okay, awesome, guys. This is an amazing. Check out the chat. You guys are having a great conversation. Peyton, I love what you guys are saying there. Now, that was an introduction to an issue we're still talking about. Should people be compensated for slavery? So we're going to look at our document-based question today. And please note that this is not a document-based question that you would see in the AP. This is a scaffolded document-based question. That means that there's questions under each document to help the students process the document. You won't see that in the AP exam. In the AP exam, you have to have your own way of extracting the information. So if everybody can please open up the document, we're going to start looking at it. Let me try something here. I've never done this, but hopefully it'll work. And one sec. Ooh, all right. Wow. All right. Let me see right here. And okay, so I'm trying to stream the document-based question here. Okay, so all right, Tamar, excellent. Okay, can somebody, let me see if I can put the link here. All right, there you go. You can get the document there. All right, so hopefully everybody has this open. Remember, the document-based question is 25%, but I'm going to show you what a document-based question is. So a document-based question in the AP exam has a prompt, and I'm going to highlight the prompt here. And the prompt is, what caused the English colonists to turn to the use of African slaves to meet their labor needs during the 1600s and 1700s? And what were two effects of that switch? So in a DBQ, you would read the documents and then you would write an essay. Now we are doing, like I said, this is a simple one, and I'm just going to take you through it. In the AP, you have about 15 minutes to read the documents and then to begin writing your essay. This one's going to be a little bit different, like I said. So we're going to look at document A. Document A, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more. Document A here is essentially a document from an indentured servant. This is a contract for an indentured servant. So it says this indentured made the 4th day of August made the 4th day of August in this 29th year of the reign of the sovereign lord, blah, blah, blah. That said, William Buckland shall and will, as faithful covenant servant, well and truly served the said Thomas Matson and his executors, and assigns to the plantation of Virginia beyond the seas for the space of 4 years. So here's a contract. This man named William Buckland is entering with another man in order to pay his passage to the New World. But what does he have to do in order to pay for the passage? Maybe I lost you guys there. He has to sign this contract, and exactly, Tamar, great job. He has to work for 4 years. And so essentially an indentured servant is a white person coming from Europe, and they're lower economic. They say, I'll work for you in the New World, but after 4 years, I'm free. So to what plantation was William Buckland assigned? Starts with the V. All right, Virginia. And Tamar just said it. How many years was this contract for? How old was William Buckland when he entered this contract? Well, let's go back to the document. And it says William Buckland. Let me see if I can. Oh, save and close. Sorry. It says William Buckland doth hereby covenant and declare himself now to be the age of 22 years old, single, and no covenant or contracted servant to any other persons. Exactly. He's 22. And William Buckland was married. True or false? False. It's correct. So now in the AP, they would just give you this document and you would have to extract it. Now, you know this is an indentured servant contract, William Buckland, and he's coming in for 4 years to work. So remember this. This is document A. Now let's go to document B. Well, before I go back, let's go back to this question. What caused the English colonists to turn to the use of African slaves to meet their labor needs? Okay, remember that question. So we know that indentured servants signed a contract for 5 to 7 years in exchange to passage. William Buckland signed it for 4, so he got a good deal. After the end of the contract, they became free and given some compensation. But sometimes the compensation was like a sweater. It wasn't anything great. They didn't get a house, a bunch of money. They just got basically, okay, you're free. But what do you do when you're free and you have no money? They were often treated badly, these indentured servants. So what caused the decline of indentured servants? Well, as the population of indentured servants fell, the prices rose. So there weren't that many indentured servants willing to come to the New World to do work, to do manual labor. So one of the things that caused the decrease was that there weren't that many of them. And the conditions were very bad for indentured servants. So the prices went up. Another factor that caused the decline in indentured servants is the price of African slaves dropped dramatically. It became cheaper. to buy slaves than to buy an indentured servant. Now, I have a question for you. A slave, an indentured servant works for 5 to 7 years. How long can you keep a slave for? Correct, Hannah. Yeah. Perfect. Permanent bondage. So that means you could keep a slave forever, and they were cheaper than an indentured servant. And then lastly, Bacon's Rebellion discouraged the use of indentured servants because they could potentially cause problems once they're free. And so people said, these indentured servants, they cause a lot of trouble. It's easier to just turn to African slaves. And so the question, remember our prompt is, what caused this shift is prices went up on indentured servants, African slave prices went down, and Bacon's Rebellion made people think like, once you free them, they kind of become troublemakers. So let's answer these questions. What would happen to the indentured servant at the end of their contract? Correct, Tamar, Brian? Okay, they would get their compensation and they would be set what? They would be set free. All right, Zara, great job. Nicole, good job. What did the prices for indentured servants, why did the prices for indentured servants rise? The second question here. Why did they rise right here? Exactly. They would be given plots of land because there was less of them, correct? There was a shortage of them. What would be an economic advantage of buying a slave over buying an indentured servant? So why would somebody say, you know what, it's cheaper? All right, Hannah, you beat me to it. All right, slaves were cheaper. And then finally, what impact did Bacon's Rebellion have in terms of the desire to use indentured servants? So what impact did Bacon's Rebellion have in terms of the desire to use indentured servants? Yeah, people were kind of saying like, look, you free this indentured servants, they become troublemakers, and you know it's not good for anybody. So it made exactly landless free men were dangerous. Excellent. That's document B. Now let's look at document C. Document C shows a decline in population. If you were with me last week, you saw this one. So which groups are represented in this map here? Oh, which groups was represented in North America before 1492? All right, native, excellent. All right, Miss Kim's class, let's make sure you guys are participating there. Peyton, good job. What was the Native American population at in 1650? So let's look at 1650. What was the Native population at? Yeah, Zara, perfect. 2.8, I would say 2.7 is fine. Why did the Native American population decline from 1492 to 1780? So if you look at the population here, why did it decline? Why did it go this way by 1780? Okay, diseases. Exactly. Diseases fighting between English, the encomienda system, perfect. Disease warfare, perfect. And finally, as the Native American population decreased and the Europeans were no longer able to use them as forced labor, which group of peoples began to rise in 1780? Exactly, Africans. And so one of the things that you see here is that as the natives declined and they began to die off by disease, there was a need for labor, and so that brought the need for African Americans into the New World. So that's another reason. Okay. Now we're going to look at a few more documents. You guys are doing a great job sticking with me in there. So let's look at this. What was shipped from Africa to North America? So here's Africa, and this is North America. What was shipped there? Slaves. What was this line right here called? This middle line right here of the triangular trade. All right, Carlos. All right, Peyton, Hannah, good job. The middle passage. This was the passage that slaves were brought. And many of them died of diseases, of illness, just the conditions that they were brought in. And this is why many people say we should pay reparations, because this journey here was torturous. Now, what was brought from North America to Europe? Nicole, absolutely, it was inhumane. Tomatoes, crops, perfect. And then if you look from Europe to Africa, there was textiles, raw manufactured goods to Africa. And if you look at this, what is this called right here? The triangular trade. And why do they call it that? Because it creates this little triangle here. But the most important is to remember that this part of the triangular trade is called the Middle Passage. All right, let's look at this. Now, this was a slave that was brought through the Middle Passage, and he wrote a book about his experience. So this is a first-person account of what that Middle Passage was like. I'm going to just read it, and then I'm going to ask you guys some questions on it. Hang in there with me, guys, because so far you're seeing that there's different information, and then we'll put it together at the end. And then you'll get a sense of what this DBQ is about. So the closeness of the place. So this guy is inside a ship, and he's describing the conditions inside the ship in the Middle Passage. The closeness of the place and the heat of the climate added to the number in the ship, which was so crowded that each has scarcely room to turn himself, almost suffocating us. This produced copious precipitations so that the air soon became unfit for respiration from a variety of lonesome smells, and brought on a sickness among the slaves, of which many died, thus falling victims to the improvident avarice, as I may call it, of their purchasers. This wretched situation was again aggravated by the galling of the chains, now become insupportable, and the filth of the unnecessary tubs, large buckets of human waste, into which the children often fell and were almost suffocated. The shrieks of the women and the groans of the dying rendered the whole scene a horror almost inconceivable. So here's people using the bathroom in this buckets, and the kids would fall into it. I mean, this is human waste. And this is conditions that took months for them to get to the New World. So we're not going to talk about that, but you can see what the conditions described are horrendous, right? And again, I'll go back to it. This is why people say that we should pay reparations, because think about these conditions. This was people suffered inconceivably here, and maybe they do deserve something for this for having gone through this. Now, I'm not saying they do, but this is an argument. Passages like this. All right, we're almost done. We have a few more documents. So here's a document of slavery in the colonies. Which colony had about 15 to 70% of its population as slaves? So here's the slave population. Here's the breakdown. Which of these colonies had about 50 to 70%? Perfect. South Carolina. All right, here's the question right here. What do Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Connecticut have in common on this map? Correct, Zara. Virginia and the part of the Carolinas, correct. %. Okay, Carlos, kind of. If you look at it, I can see where it says, all right, there, Nicole. Okay, perfect, Carlos. You corrected it there. Good job. It's about 0 to 10% of their population was made up of slaves. And so you start to see that slaves are going here to the south, to the southern region, and we're going to look at why that was happening. Okay? Now, let's look at this document here. So the New England colonies are this colonies up here. The middle colonies include Delaware, Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey right here. And the southern colonies, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. And if you look at the quality of the soil, the southern colonies is the most fertile. What does that mean? It's the most fertile. Nicole, exactly. It's good for agriculture, better for crop growing. No problem. Welcome, Pat. Thank you so much for joining us. Exactly. Most suitable for agriculture. And so this part is the most fertile. And if you look at the length of the growing season, 7 to 9 months in the southern colonies, that means that they have a season where they can grow more things. And of course, therefore, they're going to need more physical labor. And this is why slavery made its way to the south in the southern colonies. Why? The land was the most fertile. This growing season was 7 to 9 months. And tobacco, wheat, cattle, iron, naval supplies, furs, rice, indigo, silk, and lumber were all created there. And so the southern colonies is going to need the most amount of physical labor. This is going to make a little bit more sense as we move forward in American history and you start to see the divide between the North and the South. So real quick, what were the 3 colonial regions? In this document, they're listed. Janet, exactly. That was great for agriculture. Okay, perfect. Peyton, good job. So it was New England colonies, middle colonies, and the southern colonies. Which of these regions was the most fertile? Carlos, the South, exactly. Okay, so if you're writing a DBQ and you say that the southern colonies had more slaves because they had the most fertile amount of land and they had 7 to 9 months of growing season, this is impressive knowledge that you can put into a DBQ. And here goes a question. What connection is there between the length of the growing season, well, I kind of did that for you, and the slave workforce? The connection obviously is that you need more people to work the land. Okay, we have 2 last documents, and then you guys will have kind of gone through your first DBQ, but this is, remember, it's a scaffolded DBQ. In the regular AP, you won't have these questions. So here's document H. He, the slave, so this is John Ferdinand Smith is talking about what is life like as a slave in the South. So he says, he, the slave, is called up in the morning at daybreak and is seldom allowed time enough to swallow 3 mouthfuls of hominy or hoe cake, but is driven out immediately to the field to the hard labor at which he continues without intermission until noon. About noon is the time he eats his dinner, and he's seldom allowed an hour for that purpose. They then return to severe labor, which continues in the field until dusk in the evening. So why isn't the typical slave able to finish his or her breakfast? Perfect. They're forced to work very early, right? And it's exactly, they were seen as property and it was hard labor. So they couldn't sit down, have a hearty breakfast. They were, as soon as the sun was visible, like, you had to be out there. And what can you infer about the length of the slave's typical workday? So they didn't say this specifically, but you said this word daybreak, and then he's coming in at dusk. What do you think? How many hours is this slave working for? Okay, paying very long, but think about it. Like, I work very long hours. What would a very long day look like? From dawn to dusk, correct? But let's say 6 o'clock is dawn. What time is dusk? 12 hours, okay? I would totally agree with that. It's probably 12 to 14 hour days. And imagine that you go to school for 6 hours a day and you're exhausted, but you guys are awesome because you're logging into the stream. So you guys are even learning more, but think about how exhausting that is. They're out in the field in the hot sun and it's a terrible, terrible condition. Well, one of the effects of that, those terrible conditions, is something called the Stono Rebellion. Now, this is the last document we're going to look at. And the African Americans living in the colonies at this time, in the southern colonies, they're fed up with this system. And a lot of people think, oh, why didn't they just fight back? Why didn't they just get together and fight their way out of slavery? Well, many of them tried, and they were often unsuccessful. This is, you want to remember this, the Stono Rebellion is a good piece of evidence when you're talking about resistance to African American slaves. So let's go through this. What was the Stono Rebellion? Here's a picture of it that you might be able to see on the AP. This has appeared on the AP exam. And here's a first-hand account of what happened. On a single day of Sunday night, September 1739, occurred a slave uprising which, although brief and quickly suppressed, alarmed white colonists throughout the British America. About 50 enslaved African Americans, perhaps responding to the promise of freedom in Spanish Florida, stole weapons and killed about 20 white settlers as they headed south. Soon, most were killed or captured, tried, and executed. The decapitated heads of several were placed on posts as a stark warning. Soon after South Carolina enacting stricter limitations on slaves' conduct, especially their freedom on Sundays to work for themselves, and also banned slaveholders from freeing their slaves. So this is the last document. So what prompted the African Americans to attack whites? Correct. This is after Bacon's Rebellion. The harsh treatment, the harsh conditions, Carlos, good. But there was, Peyton has it right there. It is the hard conditions, the harsh treatment, but it was also the promise that if they got to Spain, they would be free. Why were the decapitated heads of African Americans captured and placed on these posts? Why were they captured and placed there? All right, to scare the rest of them, exactly, to prevent others from doing the same. Imagine you're a slave and you see these decapitated heads on the sign, on the post. You know, like, this is what happens when you try to escape. Zara, exactly, to show other slaves what would happen if you revolt. And how did South Carolina react after the Stono Rebellion? Oops, sorry. Okay, exactly. They made harsher laws. They limited the freedom. Now, no on Sundays to work for themselves. They limited that and also banned slaveholders from freeing their slaves. Again, Bacon's Rebellion was to indentured servants as Stono Rebellion was to African Americans. It was this thing that scared people. Janeth, exactly. The slaves had harder conditions. Exactly. All right, so let's go back. You guys have done an amazing job hanging in there with me. Let me zoom back in here. You're gonna see my face really big in a sec. Sorry guys out there. So that's essentially what a document-based question is a bunch of documents that you are given evidence, and then you're supposed to use those documents to answer the prompt. Now let's go back to the prompt. So what caused the English colonists to turn to the use of African slaves to meet their labor needs during the 1600s and 1700s? So what's the answer to that based on those documents that we just talked about? So why did they go from, what caused them to do that? Correct. But there are practice DBQs that are for every period, so it's good to get used to the format. But Hannah's absolutely correct. Exactly. Hannah, you're on it. Correct. You get to choose for the LEQ. So here, let's go back to this question. So the need for the people to work on lands for long seasons. Okay, so what caused the English colonists to turn to the use of African slaves? That's one of them. Peyton, you're on there. What else? All right. Indentured servants were becoming very expensive. The increase of price of indentured servants, the need for sugar and tobacco as people needed more of that in Europe. All right, perfect. So you guys get that. And what were two effects of that switch? Oh, wait. Somebody did, let's go back to this part. What caused the English colonists to turn to the use of African slaves? There was one more there. So we were talking about the reduction of indentured servants, but there was something with Native Americans as well that we talked about, and that was evidenced in some of the documents. Does anybody remember what happened to the Native Americans? African slaves were resistant against malaria and were better rice fields. And okay, perfect. Native Americans would die. Native Americans' population was decreasing due to diseases. Many Native Americans ran back into the woods and would get lost. And the colonists who were not used to the woods could not find them. So what caused? So let's go back to this part of the question. What caused the English colonists to turn to the use of African slaves? Was a decline in the indentured servant population and a decline in the Native American population as well. And finally, what were two effects of that switch? Oh, and indentured servants, Bacon's Rebellion. Good job, Peyton. Good job. Perfect, Hannah. One effect was the Stono Revolt, an increase of African Americans to the Americas, okay? And we also talked about, there was one document there talking about a certain passage. All right, and the middle passage, that was an effect. Millions of African Americans were brought through the middle passage, and many of the millions of African Americans died. And this was an effect of this switch from to African labor by the English. So let's look at this, and we're almost done here. So why did the English colonists turn to African slaves to meet their labor needs? You could say the decrease in Native American population, and your evidence is document C. A drop in the number of indentured servants coming to North America, and your evidence is document B. A decrease in the prices for African American slaves and the proliferation of the slave trade, and that's document D. Now you say, well, what does this mean, CBD? Well, when in the AP DBQ, when you cite a document and you're using evidence, you summarize it in your own words, and then you put parentheses and doc C. That's how I like to teach my students. Other teachers teach it differently, but I always tell them parentheses and then doc C. And this shows you that you use the document as evidence in your argument. Okay? So any of these would be evidence. All right. Thank you, Pat. Thank you for agreeing there. Any of these would be a great way to cite the evidence and get those points. You can't just talk about the document, explaining the document. You have to use them as evidence for your argument. And now let's go to the last question. What were two effects of that switch? The torturous journey for African Americans across the Middle Passage, and we saw that in document E. Slaves rebelling and killing whites as evidenced by the Stono Rebellion, and we saw that in document E. And large populations of African Americans to southern colonies because there are more fertile, it should say more fertile land and required more forced labor. That was document F and C. And now why I did this one is because sometimes you can have two documents that you're using to bolster your argument. So in the AP, when you read through the documents and then you start using the documents in your essay, this is a way to cite them, okay? You summarize them in your own words. Don't copy the word for word from the documents. The readers have them. And then you put it into your own words and you cite it. And this is how you get points on the document-based question. Correct. It depends on the number of documents that there are. I've seen DBQs where they're asking you to use every document. Sometimes they tell you to use 6 out of 7. It all depends. All right. And so I want to see if anybody has any questions. Guys, the document-based question that I shared with you guys, I created that just so you guys could have access to it. Again, if your AP teacher looks at that and says, oh, this isn't a real AP US history one, you're right, they're not. This was a scaffolded AP US history just so we could get into it. And Zara, you have a question. Were slaves treated differently in each colony? Yeah. Actually, Pat was talking a little bit about that yesterday. And in the different regions, some in the northern regions, they tended to be treated a little bit better, although they were not treated great. And I don't want to get that in there. All right, Peyton, thank you for joining so much. Carlos, thank you. They were treated differently, but in the South was where they had the harshest conditions, the harshest of the harshest conditions. This is where many of them would be tortured if they were try to run away. They would have their hands chopped off. They would be branded. It was just horrible things. So some were given freedom prior to the Stono Rebellion, correct? And sometimes they were set free. And some slaves, when they were set free, they moved to the north where they had a little bit more freedom. Ida, thank you so much for your feedback. That's so kind. Thank you. All right, Abufo, thank you so much. I really appreciate you participating on this. And to finish off, let's look. Yes, Zara, I would actually, I'm going to tell you, if you send me an email, I'm going to, Zara, send me an email, and I'm going to send you a review packet that you can have. And actually, anybody in this chat, if you want, if you haven't, if you don't have a review packet, I'll send you one. But I do recommend, and maybe Pat has a different idea, but I recommend this one by Kaplan, the AP US History exam. This was about $19. And this is something that I always used with all my students to as a study guide. And every time we finished the chapter, I would have them kind of practice. There's a lot of great practice questions and so on, but it also depends what your teachers want. All right, so let's look at the final thing here. Zara, thank you so much for your question. Yes, and we also have a study guide from Fiveable, and I could also share that with you guys. So 8 of you guys, this was your first live stream. 18, this was your second live stream, so thank you guys. And 5 of you thought that we should pay reparations to the descendants of African slaves. 12 of you guys said no, and 8 of you said maybe. Hannah might have changed some of your minds because of her strong arguments, and she came on the stream. But the debate goes on, guys. I don't have the answer. It's a debate, but we learned today about the historical impact of slavery and the horrendous conditions that Africans were brought to America. All right, awesome. Okay, guys. So I want to thank you so much for joining the live stream. I will not be streaming next week, but please follow Fiveable on Twitter so you can keep up with all the streams coming up. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I want to thank you guys. This was my largest audience yet. Hannah, I want to thank you for coming on onto the stream and talking about your views. Zara, thank you so much for coming on here and asking great questions. Peyton, thank you. And Nicole, Miss Kim's class, thank you. And bye, everybody.